Hello everyone. Welcome to SHR Trinity. Today, we dive into part 3 of our zero-shot prompting interview series, focusing on applied scenarios. Let's get started. Before we begin, if you're looking for practical, industry-oriented training in artificial intelligence and generative AI, SHR Trinity offers a comprehensive 30-hour training program. For complete course details, check the description below. Now let's begin today's interview session. We will now begin with questions 21 to 30 of our zero-shot prompting interview series. Moving on to question 21, how do you apply zero-shot prompting to customer support triage?
In customer support triage, the goal is to categorize incoming tickets rapidly without relying on massive, slow few-shot payloads. Zero-shot is perfect here because models already understand standard support domains like billing, tech support, and refunds. The key is to enforce strict categorical boundaries in the prompt. For example, analyze the following customer email. Categorize it into exactly one of these departments: billing, technical, shipping, or general. Return only the department name, with no punctuation or conversational text. By explicitly bounding the output to a predefined list and forbidding conversational filler, you turn a non-deterministic language model into a highly reliable zero-shot router.
Moving on to question 22, how do you handle zero-shot data extraction from unstructured text?
Extracting structured data from messy text using zero-shot requires defining the exact schema you expect the model to populate. Since you aren't showing the model an example of the final JSON, you must explain the schema keys in natural language. For instance, if parsing a resume, your prompt should say, extract the candidate information into a JSON object. Use the key years_of_experience as an integer. Use the key primary_skills as a list of strings. If a value is not found, use null. This prescriptive rule setting forces the model to adhere to your backend data contracts perfectly, completely bypassing the need for few-shot exemplars.
Moving on to question 23, what is the best approach for zero-shot classification of sensitive content?
When classifying sensitive content, such as hate speech or PII, ambiguity is dangerous. A zero-shot prompt must act as a strict legal definition. You cannot simply ask, is this text toxic? Because toxicity is subjective. Instead, you define the criteria mathematically. Does this text contain explicit threats of physical violence, racial slurs, or self-harm ideation? Reply yes or no, followed by a one-sentence justification. By anchoring the zero-shot prompt in specific, objective criteria, you override the model's internal, generalized safety filters and force it to evaluate the text against your strict enterprise compliance standards.
Moving on to question 24, how effective is zero-shot prompting for code generation?
Zero-shot prompting is incredibly effective for standard code generation because programming languages have rigid syntax that LLMs learn perfectly during pre-training. However, the prompt must specify the environment and the constraints. A poor prompt says write a Python script to parse CSVs. A professional zero-shot prompt says, write a Python 3.10 script to parse a CSV file. Use only the built-in CSV module, no pandas. Include type hints and PEP8 compliant docstrings. Wrap the code in triple backticks. By establishing the language version, allowed dependencies, and formatting standards, you get production-ready code on the first attempt without needing to provide a codebase example.
Moving on to question 25, how do you apply zero-shot prompting to nuanced sentiment analysis?
Basic sentiment analysis, positive, negative, neutral, is trivial for zero-shot. The challenge arises with nuanced sentiment, like detecting sarcasm or passive aggression. In these cases, your prompt must instruct the model to analyze the subtext. You structure the prompt by assigning an analytical persona, act as an expert linguist. Analyze the following review. While the literal words may be positive, determine if the underlying tone is sarcastic or passive-aggressive. Output your finding as a JSON object with keys, literal_sentiment, underlying_sentiment, and evidence. This forces the model's attention mechanism to evaluate the text at multiple semantic layers simultaneously, achieving deep analysis purely via instruction.
Moving on to question 26. Can you use zero-shot prompting for complex SQL generation?
Yes, but with a major caveat: the model cannot guess your database schema. For zero-shot SQL generation to work, you must pass the exact DDL, data definition language, table structures in the context of the prompt. Your prompt architecture should have a context block containing the create table statements, followed by the instruction block. Based only on the provided schema, write a PostgreSQL query to find the top 5 customers by revenue. Use CTEs instead of subqueries. Do not explain the code. By injecting the schema as context, you enable zero-shot translation from natural language to precise, executable SQL.
Moving on to question 27. How do you structure a zero-shot prompt for automated email drafting?
Automated email drafting in zero-shot requires you to define the communication parameters that a human naturally intuits. You must define the sender, the recipient, the objective, and the tone. For example, draft an email from John, a sales director, to a prospective client. The goal is to follow up on a software demo. The tone must be professional but urgent. Limit the email to 3 short paragraphs. Include a clear call to action to schedule a 15-minute call. This prompt succeeds without examples because it establishes a complete semantic boundary, allowing the LLM to generate highly relevant, context-aware copy instantly.
Moving on to question 28. What are the limitations of zero-shot translation?
While LLMs are phenomenal at zero-shot translation for high-resource languages like Spanish or French, their primary limitation is handling domain-specific jargon, colloquialisms, or low-resource languages. If you zero-shot translate a highly technical medical document, the model might use the literal, conversational translation of a term rather than the accepted clinical term in the target language. To mitigate this in a zero-shot environment, you must provide context. Translate the following text into German. The context is a technical cardiology white paper. Ensure all anatomical and procedural terminology adheres to formal medical German. Context acts as a substitute for examples.
Moving on to question 29. How can zero-shot prompting be used in medical triage and why is it risky?
Using zero-shot prompting for medical triage, such as summarizing patient symptoms to determine urgency, is technically possible but carries extreme operational risk. The risk is hallucination. Without examples of proper clinical reasoning, the model might downplay a critical symptom or invent a benign diagnosis. If you must use zero-shot in this domain, you employ severe negative constraints and rigid extraction protocols. The prompt must say, extract the listed symptoms. Do not provide a diagnosis. Do not suggest treatments. If symptoms match the attached critical list, flag as urgent. Otherwise, flag as routine. You restrict the model to pure text matching and extraction, entirely disabling its generative reasoning capabilities.
Moving on to question 30. How do you apply zero-shot prompting to legal contract review?
Legal contract review requires identifying specific clauses, risks, or obligations. Zero-shot works beautifully here if you treat the LLM as a search and extraction engine rather than a lawyer. You structure the prompt by defining the exact target. Review the following contract. Extract any clause related to indemnification or limitation of liability. Quote the clause exactly as written. If neither clause is present, output none. By forcing the model to extract verbatim quotes rather than summarizing, you eliminate the risk of the model altering the legal meaning of the text. This zero-shot extraction technique processes 50-page contracts in seconds, drastically accelerating paralegal workflows.
Excellent. You've completed part 3 of our zero-shot prompting interview series. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, subscribe to SHR Trinity, and press the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming AI interview preparation videos. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.